Wow, feels like ESPN Game Day in here. What do you think about that, huh? Well, thank you. Our hearts are full of gratitude for everyone who's made this moment possible, including all those that have gone before us. And all of you that are joining us here today, thank you. Catherine, I'm so grateful for you. Grateful to be on this journey with you. I've witnessed firsthand how your brave and powerful decision to share your personal story of recovery has touched countless lives. And through your groundbreaking work on Recovery Reinvented, you have literally saved lives. Catherine, I love you. Our state loves you. And I know America is going to love North Dakota's amazing First Lady. Together, Catherine and I have so much gratitude for all the Burgum and Helga's family members. We get our siblings, our cousins, second cousins, third cousins, nieces, nephews, even Aunt Joan Tuma is here all the way from California, so we know we're going to get one vote in California. But all those close friends, all of you that are here today, I'm looking back in the risers, and I think that 1/3 of my Arthur class of 16 is standing back there, high school. So thank you, Gwen, Dave, Kevin, everybody that's back there. But thanks to all of you that have encouraged us, you've supported us, and you've believed in us throughout our lives. This is definitely a family decision, and we're grateful. Today, we've got a whole boatload of elected officials here, fellow statewide, state legislators, mayors, tribal chairs, and tribal leaders from our 5 sovereign nations with whom we share geography. All of you that are elected today, you're in the arena, and we're grateful for each of you for your service. Thank you. But especially we want to thank today the people of North Dakota, who we are so honored to serve. You took a chance on us in 2016, and that was another race where everybody said we're starting out as a long shot and a dark horse, so we think it's a good place to be. But I want to thank you all, because re-electing us in that landslide in 2020, our 40-plus point victory margin was the largest in the country of any of the 11 governor races that year. You were the ones that all made that happen. Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, thank you all for being here today that are watching here in the room and those in the overflow areas. But I want to thank you for being here. There's so many, we know, friends around the country that are watching online. Today is just the start of showing how much we can achieve when we all work together. I grew up in Arthur, a tiny town of 300 people. Yeah! Part of the other 300 people that did grow up there too. But our parents were a gift. They taught us not just by their words, but by their actions. Dad, World War II Navy veteran, taught us the importance of service to country and to community. Mom, she taught us the importance of caring deeply, listening thoughtfully, respecting everyone. And from the earliest days, Dad and Mom, not sure why, but they supported my entrepreneurship, my risk-taking, whether it was crazy ideas like launching a newspaper when I was 8 years old in elementary school, or wilderness canoe trips or hitchhiking to Alaska as a teenager. But it was a cold Saturday night in January, and we were ready to head out to play neighboring town Kindred when they pulled me off the bus to tell me that our dad was dying. I was a freshman in high school. That was tough. But North Dakota was the kind of place where your neighbors rally around you. It was also, interestingly, the birthplace of the Good Samaritan Society of America. At that time, we like to kind of brag that Arthur had a population of 400, not 300. We got to that big number because we proudly counted the over 100 residents in the Good Samaritan home. Good Sam in those days, they took everyone in, regardless of age or abilities. And so in a way, our whole town was about taking care of each other, about helping those in need, about neighbor helping neighbor. Every small town in America is like that, but Arthur especially. If somebody was in need, a neighbor was always there to help out. We see that across the entire state of North Dakota today. If a farmer has a serious health issue, all the neighbors rally to get the crops planted or harvested. And every spring in North Dakota, like this spring in ranch country, neighbors help neighbors with spring roundups and brandings. I'll never forget the way our town lifted up our family and supported us all when Mom had to go back to work after Dad died. Other dads like Joe Peltier and my Uncle Al Burgum, Lester Zimmerman, all made sure I was doing okay. Mom was driving to and from Fargo for work, and every night after basketball or football practice, when Mom was still working late in Fargo, I'd go to Helen Williams' house for a fabulous dinner, homemade rolls, and a wonderful chocolate milkshake. I'll always remember her generosity and kindness. And her daughter, Julie Barner, is here today. Julie, right over here. It shouldn't be a surprise that small town values have guided me my entire life. Small town values are at the core of America. And frankly, big cities could use more ideas and more values from small towns right now. Along with cousins and friends, I worked every summer at our family's grain elevator, including some jobs like shoveling out rotten grain out of the pit. Those jobs should be featured on Discovery Channel's Dirty Jobs, actually. One time we were all so dirty and we smelled so bad from that rotten grain, we went across the main street to go to the Arthur Cafe, and Walt and Ann came out and said, no, we'll serve you out here on the curb. You guys can't come in. I worked on the farm for Jack Hoig, swathing grain every harvest, all through high school and all through college. And to help pay for college, I even worked as a chimney sweep. The minimum wage in North Dakota was $2.30, and I figured out that I could earn $40 an hour sweeping a chimney. I loved working outside, I loved climbing, and I got to wear a top hat and tails when it was 20 below. And of course, this is a time when there was an energy crisis going on. OPEC had quadrupled oil prices, and a lot of people were burning wood in their homes, so the threat of chimney fires is real. A clean chimney prevents those fires, so it was a chance to help people. And for me, the career had a real appeal, because when you're a chimney sweep, you have an opportunity to move up fast and always stay in the black. Thanks for laughing, not groaning, because for my kids, I had to have at least one dad joke in this presentation. But I believed then, and I still believe now, and I believe it deeply, that unlimited opportunity exists everywhere in America. I literally bet the farm to help turn a small startup into a billion-dollar company in North Dakota. People thought I was crazy. A software company in North Dakota? Well, we ignored those who said North Dakota was too small, too cold, and too distant to build a world-class software company. We did it anyway. We built Great Plains Software into a company that served 140,000 businesses in 132 countries. And we did it with team members from more than 220 small towns across North Dakota. At the time we went public, we were one of the top 5 most successful NASDAQ IPOs ever, only in America. 4.5 years later, by the time we joined forces with Microsoft, we had just over 2,000 team members, 1,200 of them based right here in Fargo, 400 team members across the rest of North America, and 400 Great Plains team members based around the globe. It's a tribute to the commitment of our partners and our team members and our investment, and their absolute courage to take a stand against the conventional wisdom that said it just couldn't be done. Some people called us an amazing overnight success story. The truth is, we were an overnight success story 18 years in the making. When you start a software company here, you need to be willing to go against the grain and reimagine what's possible. And that's exactly what we did when we ran for governor in 2016. We shook things up a bit. We cut $1.7 billion in spending our first year in office. We cut red tape and streamlined services. Working with other statewide electeds and the legislature, we balanced the budget every year. We bolstered cybersecurity. We brought life back to our main streets. We made record investments in education, strengthened tribal relations, built infrastructure, unleashed energy production, and diversified the economy. North Dakota is both growing and getting younger, one of the only states that's doing that. And we have the third lowest unemployment in the country and the highest workforce participation in the nation. And again, working with the legislature this past year, we achieved historic pension reform, helped pass term limits, and enacted the biggest tax cut in state history. We know we can do the same for America. Right now, the world, our economy, are both changing rapidly. And how we respond will define our future. Technology is changing every job, every company, and every industry. And this change will become more rapid than ever before. We need new leadership for the changing economy. We need a leader who understands the real work that Americans do every day. Someone who's worked alongside our farmers, our ranchers, and our small business owners. Someone who's held jobs where you shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning. Someone who's got decades of success selling our technology overseas and knows the threats and the risks to our future from foreign state-sponsored competitors stealing and pirating our intellectual property. We need a leader who's experienced firsthand that we win as a country when our innovators and entrepreneurs can soar and when every single person can grow and thrive. To unlock the best of America, we need a leader who's clearly focused on three things: economy, energy, and national security. And that is why today I'm officially announcing I'm running for the President of the United States of America. Thank you. That was so sweet, Mary. Thank you. Godmother to our kids, I should point that out. Anyway, the economy needs to be the absolute top priority. Every small business owner and every family in our country is feeling the corrosive hidden tax on their lives driven by the Biden-induced inflation. Inflation is the worst. It hurts those the most who can afford it the least. But innovation, that's always been the driver of America. Innovation over regulation. Innovation over regulation. We say it every day in North Dakota. Innovation over regulation is how you solve the challenges we face today. Regulation looks backwards. Innovation looks towards the future. The Biden administration is obsessed with creating mountains of federal red tape. These regulations raise costs for every American consumer. They hamper our ability to compete in the world marketplace. They siphon time and investment away from innovative solutions. And the way we retain our nation's position, which is so important in everything we do, our position as the world's largest, most dynamic, and most powerful economy, is through innovation. For well over a century, American innovation, from telecommunications to electric light to flight itself, and the power of American agriculture, think of it, feeding the entire world. America has led the way. Yeah. Yet when I was in high school, we were told two things were absolutely certain about our future. The world was going to run out of food, and the world was going to run out of energy. However, today we live in a world of abundance because of American innovation. Innovation has paved the way for a better life for all Americans. And the potential and the possibility, the coming breakthroughs in software and biotech, energy and healthcare can continue this trend. But due to over-regulation, that brighter future for Americans is now at risk. Let's get back to common sense. Let's eliminate red tape, get inflation under control, cut taxes, reduce the cost of living, and help every American realize their fullest potential. It takes energy to get things done in America. Clean, reliable, low-cost energy brings manufacturing back to the U.S. and reduces our supply chain risks. U.S. energy policy cannot be separated from either our economy or from our national security. Energy policy directly underpins both. And we need to stop buying energy from our enemies and start selling energy to our friends and allies. America produces energy cleaner and safer than anywhere else in the world. If you care about the global environment, you should be fighting to have every drop of energy produced in the United States. And when we're truly energy independent and we're supporting our allies, that's when we stabilize the globe and restore America as a leader of the free world. Putin only dared to invade Ukraine because our allies in Western Europe were all dependent on Russian energy. We need to recognize the real threats to America and strengthen our national security. Growing up in a small town, you learn quickly the enemy isn't each other. Our enemies aren't our neighbors down the street. Our enemies are countries that want to see our way of life destroyed. In a country built on neighbors helping neighbors, we become a country of neighbors fighting neighbors. We should all be fighting to unite the country against our common enemies like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and the drug cartels. And we all know Joe Biden isn't getting the job done and too often is making things worse. Gas prices are too high, and the Biden administration enacts policies that make us more dependent on foreign oil. That makes no sense. American families are struggling under the weight of record inflation, and the response from Democrats? Increase the size of the IRS to target Americans. That makes no sense. An out-of-control border that is ignored by the White House while killer drugs like fentanyl infiltrate our communities, and 110,000 individual tragedies occur through overdoses. Think of that. 110,000 families in 2022 lost a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, a sister, or a brother, and we're doing nothing about the border. That makes no sense. And we're facing a very real threat from China. And Joe Biden's Green New Deal policies, they're only going to shift our dependence from OPEC to Sinopec. That makes no sense. We could go on for hours, but we don't need to. Where we come from, when something isn't working, you stop and you try something new. That's common sense. Joe Biden has got to go. If you want to ensure that Joe Biden is a one-term president, I hope you're going to join our campaign by visiting dougburgum.com. And if you believe that the economy, energy, and national security are critical to our nation's future, remember, That's why I'm running for president. And if you want more small-town common sense in Washington and our big cities, we'll make that happen. And if you think that we need a governor and business leader who understands this changing economy, I want to earn your vote. Because this campaign, this election, is all about what it takes to bring out the best of America and improve every American life. After my dad died, I saw firsthand what it means to be the best of America when the people of Arthur, North Dakota lifted up our family. When we built Great Plains Software with team members from small towns across the nation, just like Arthur, it showed the best of America. The best of America exists. It exists in the smallest towns and in the biggest cities. The best of America is there, on our farms, on our factory floors, and in tiny startups with big dreams. Every day, students see the best of America when they're inspired by their teachers. We see it in our brave military, our dedicated police, and our selfless first responders. It's there through the sleepless nights of new mothers and fathers loving their newborns, and also in the loving caregivers who are taking care of those that are in the twilight of their life. When we take the time to look, we can see that we are surrounded by the best of America. Working together, we will unlock the best of America in all of us. Please join us on this mission. With your support, we will improve every American life. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America. When growing up, it was incredible. Amazing parents. My dad was a World War II Navy officer. After Pearl Harbor, he'd gone down to the gym in Castleton, 15 miles away, and signed up, enrolled in the Navy, and born and raised in the same town I grew up in. He had a college degree from North Dakota State. And by the way, there's one jersey over here. Go Bison. Okay, all right. Good job. Some of you know who the Bison. When growing up, it was incredible. Amazing parents. My dad was a World War II Navy officer. After Pearl Harbor, he'd gone down to the gym in Castleton, 15 miles away, and signed up, enrolled in the Navy, and born and raised in the same town I grew up in. He had a college degree from North Dakota State. And by the way, there's one jersey over here. Go Bison. Okay, all right. Good job. Some of you know who the Bison.
And then that sends a signal to our allies around the world, which is don't worry about the U.S. It's okay. They're pulling back. They're withdrawing. And then we let all of Western Europe get dependent on Russia for energy. And then Biden himself says, oh, I'm not sure what I would do if Putin invaded Ukraine. We green-lighted all the movement of Putin in that. We basically gave him the green light to go in. Had all of Western Europe dependent on his energy. He moves into Ukraine. I'm telling you, if we were supplying Western Europe with energy, he wouldn't even dare go into Ukraine. But then when he went in, guess what? Price of gas goes up. He makes bank on all of that for like the first 6 months. Then belatedly we go, oh, we're going to sanction Russian oil. So now we sanction Russian oil. Guess what? Their price has gone down on the world market, about 20% for their oil. Who's buying it? China. So China, who we're competing with, is getting low-cost energy. I'm pretty sure any farmer in Iowa right now would like to go fill up like 20% off diesel tomorrow, but we got a policy that's giving low-cost energy to China as opposed to getting it to the United States. And we've had out-of-work oil field workers in North Dakota at the same time the State Department was going to Venezuela. Not only that, human rights violations, they didn't even have an EPA. Like I said, nobody produces it cleaner and safer than we do. So again, I'll repeat, if you care about the environment, you want to have the energy produced here. If you care about global stability, you want to have the energy produced here. And in national security, to improve every American life. I know that because in North Dakota, when we ran, we understood something. If you want to throw bombs at the other party, the other side, run for Congress. I will never be a congressman. I'll never be a senator. They do amazing work. I love them. But I'm an operating guy. I've grown up building stuff and running stuff. And when you're in the executive branch, you have a job to serve everybody. When there's a blizzard in North Dakota, we don't ask if you're a Republican, Independent, or Democrat before we decide to plow your road. We plow the road for everybody. We do our job first. And that's what we need in the executive branch in this country right now. So in closing, I just want to say again, thank you to all of you. Grateful for everybody. Thanks for your time. Thanks for stopping today. The Iowa State Fair is absolutely amazing. Catherine and I love it. She grew up I grew up in a small town. She grew up in a big town, Jamestown, North Dakota. 15,000 people in Jamestown. And if you guys understand, I understand how high school sports are. Another thing you need to know about me is, but we built a company of 2,000 people. We had customers in 130 countries. We had team members working for us all over the world. But most of those team members came from 220 different small towns across North Dakota. And I know what small town kids can do. And they told us all along, you can't build a world-class software company in North Dakota. They also said you can't win as governor when you're down 60 points in the polls. I've been told that my entire life, but all of you know, if we give the Midwestern small town folks, if you give a level playing field, we can outperform, our farmers in America can outperform anybody in the world. Yellen and Kerry all over there, none of them were talking about how the U.S., which can be an energy, not just independent, but an energy superpower, energy dominant, how we can use that in our negotiations with China. China also imports calories every day. They don't raise enough food to feed everybody in that country. So what do we have? What do we have in Iowa? What do we have in America? We feed the world, we fuel the world. This is the powerhouse economy we have. We do not have to be in second place to China on anything. The United States, not only best country in the world, but the strongest economy. We're choking it to death with policies that actually are going in the wrong direction. And I said about the environment, if you care about the environment, you would want to have every ounce of energy produced in the United States. We produce it cleaner, safer, and smarter than anybody else in the world. Absolutely we do. And thank you. And the opportunity for things like sustainable aviation fuels coming out of Iowa, unbelievable. This has got an opportunity to increase the value of every corn acre in the state, increase the value of every soybean acre in the state. We have an opportunity as a country to really move forward with energy policy that would help us sell energy to our friends and allies, stop buying it from our enemies. People ask me, what would you do on the first day in office? It would be that. We're going to sell energy to our friends and allies, stop buying it from our adversaries and our enemies. It's just that simple. And lastly on...
Of the United States, Doug Burgum.
Thank you, Catherine. I just so much to be grateful for, including all of you that are here, but I do want to say Catherine is changing lives and saving lives, and it's been amazing with her courage, sharing her story. But also, we're super grateful for all of you. We talk about the best of America, and we see it every day that we're in Iowa, because all of you are out here. I view the President's job as the CEO of America, and the first screening interview is the Iowa caucuses. You get to tell the rest of the nation who you think should have that job. And so you take your job very seriously, and everybody we meet is so informed, so knowledgeable about the issues that are facing this country. It's been a real joy to be here. But a little bit of background on me, when I grew up in a town like many of you probably did, Arthur, North Dakota, 300 people. It's a small little agricultural community, and it was fantastic growing up there.
Good afternoon. We wake up every day to be grateful, being grateful to be in this race, and we're super grateful to be with you today. So before 2016, Doug had spent his entire career in the private sector. He knows how to compete and win in the global economy. And about 7 years ago, he came home and said, I'm thinking about getting into the governor's race. And I had this deer in headlights look on my face saying, I'm not sure about that. And he said, well, okay, here's the situation. It's only 5 months until the primary. Our opponent is a sitting attorney general. He's been in that job for 15 years. His family has 100 years of name recognition. They've been in politics practically since statehood. And there's one more thing. He's ahead by 60 points in the polls. But we'll give it our best shot.
Each candidate will get 20 minutes. They can use that time however they want. They can talk for 5 minutes or they can talk for 20. It's all up to them. We at the Register believe in the power of civil discourse, and we ask you to uphold the best traditions of Iowa nice.
Closest big town would be far out.
All right. Isn't that what they all say in North Dakota, your biggest town in Fargo?
Yes, absolutely. That's the reference point.
you know, when we talk about, you talked a little bit about China, but when we talk about the southern border, talk again about the precursor to the fentanyl is coming from China, the national security threat that poses. You want to talk a little bit about that too? I mean, again, we've got to figure out a way to stop that. I know Ambassador Branstad worked on that to really stop fentanyl coming into the States, but now that's gone, and here we go.
Well, absolutely, and what confirmed for me, and this wasn't my first trip down to the border this week, but the one sector we're in where the North Dakota National Guard, the young men and women there are helping out, 98 different countries, citizens had crossed 98 in the first 6 months. I mean, so this isn't just like, oh, people are, you know, coming over from Mexico. Syrians, Iranians, North Koreans, Russians, Chinese. I mean, so we people on terrorist watch lists are part of the group that are coming across the border right now, and this creates a threat. And then on the other side, literally across the river, they know which the cartels own those hubs. These are transnational criminal organizations that are super well funded. They've got drones, they've got intel, they've got staff. In one little sector we were in, they were estimating, based on the interviews of people coming across who'd been exploited, families saying, how much did you have to pay to try to get here? And it's, you know, thousands of dollars per individual. So they estimate that in 1 week, the cartels had made $28 million of fees exploiting people that were trying to get into this country. And so they're better funded on that side in some cases than we're funding our own better border patrol here. And so it is again, a complete abdication, dereliction of duty by the Biden administration to not be doing their #1 job, which is national security.
Absolutely.
Great. I have a follow-up question on the debate stage specifically. I have talked to some of the other campaigns who don't think you should be on the stage because they say you've used gimmicks to get to the right threshold for the RNC. What is your response to that? And are you guys having to push back on this, a lobbying campaign behind the scenes?
No, the first I've heard of that, but that's actually funny. I was laughing out loud if you wouldn't be able to pick that up on an iPhone. But that, you know, a rule was made, and what an entrepreneur does is figure out what's the most cost-effective way to solve the problem. That's what business people do. That's what entrepreneurs do. And this clubhouse rule made by the RNC, you know, perfect if you've held national office. Perfect if you've been a pundit on a national cable channel. Perfect if you've run for president multiple times before. If you're someone who's got fresh ideas and real experience to bring to the job, not great because you're starting from scratch. But we just said, hey, we never complained once about any of those rules. We just said, okay, that's the rule, we're going to surpass it. We surpassed it in 7 weeks. Anybody who's ever started an online business knows that when you launch your company, you have to have some kind of promotion to get people to come to your website. And we were able to achieve that goal at probably 1/5 the price of other people that were paying these online marketing firms that were saying, oh, give us $100 and we'll go get you a donor. We just said, hey, we can do it a lot cheaper. It turns out people loved the promotion. And when they loved the promotion, they came to the website, and some of them said, I don't need a Biden inflation gift card. I'll buy a hat, I'll buy a T-shirt, I'll donate more than $1. And by the way, then if they like what they see, they come back and they become repeat customers and they donate again. So it's really ridiculous for people to say that if in a world where we have to become more competitive on the global scale, we got to get our economy sprinting instead of crawling, that you'd have someone who's actually been a successful business person solve a problem and then somehow say that that was somehow was I don't know how you described it, but I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense to me. And I would tell you that our supporters loved it, and we've actually got more supporters because people are coming up and saying, love the creative way that you solved this insider rule to try to block outsiders from being in this campaign.
And just a quick follow-up on that debate question here. Trump has not signed the pledge, and the RNC has a rule that if you don't sign the pledge, you can't be on the debate stage. Do you think they should give a waiver for him if he chooses to show up and still hasn't signed it, or should they stick to the rules on it?
Well, these are all clubhouse rules, but if they're clubhouse rules, they ought to apply to everybody.
Governor, I have a follow-up on the debate. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes. You said you're not going to pull punches or punch anyone this debate or before the debate. So what's your strategy going into the debate August 23rd?
Well, part of the strategy is
doing what we're doing right here, which is keep campaigning, keep talking to real Americans about their concerns, and whether it's inflation, which is affecting everybody in this country, it's energy. I mean, everybody's paying too much for their gas or their diesel at the pump. We're just going to keep talking to people about that, because that's what leaders do. You listen to your customers, you understand their problems, and you keep working forward. This is not about locking yourself in a closet and rehearsing lines. I know people think performative politics is sort of the new norm, but I actually think that leadership matters, and leadership begins with understanding the people that you're working for. And when you're in the executive branch, you work for everybody.
If that doesn't work out, I mean, performative politics, as you said, is sort of the new norm. If that doesn't work out, are you going to have any regrets that maybe you didn't swing a little harder?
Well, you don't try to work it out. You just balance the stinking budget and pay off the national debt. Get your heads off. I don't care if you're from North Dakota or South Dakota. You don't touch this.
We don't have any regrets. We're happy warriors. We won't have any regrets. We're in this campaign because we have a deep care for the country and the people that live here. Our whole motivation is a heart of service, which is that people need to stand up and try to run for these jobs. I mean, I've gone 5 minutes and nobody in this gaggle's asked about the crowded field. It's not a crowded field. This is the most important job in the world, and like a dozen people are applying. And some of them have never worked in the private sector. Some of them have never worked in government. I mean, I think we don't even have 12 qualified candidates. I think America should be more concerned is why aren't good people stepping up and getting in and saying, I want to help lead this country going forward. And it's because of the divisiveness. Divisiveness has become a massively profitable business for the cable channels, for social media. Divisiveness is good for those groups. It's not good for our country. China loves it because they love it when we're fighting with ourselves. And of course, actually the Biden administration loves it when Republicans are fighting amongst themselves, because then we don't have to talk about Biden's horrible record on the economy, on energy and national security. But we're trying to be a voice that's saying, look, residential races should be about the future, about a vision for the future, about what leadership really looks like. And that we should be talking about, if you've got an incumbent, we should be talking about their record. Are people better off today than they were 2.5 years ago? And with prices up 30% from 2 years ago, I think the answer is probably no, they're not. With the world less stable than it was 2 years ago, I would say they're not. That's the campaign that we want to run. And we're not about attacking other Republicans. We're running against Joe Biden.
Governor, you just said one last one. Kelsey has a question.
Governor, to get on the debate stage, you sold these Biden economic relief cards. Are you aware that some people took those cards and donated them to the Biden campaign?
Well, I think that's fantastic, because we are looking forward to running against Joe Biden, and I know that he's going to need all the financial support that he can get to get there. And so I think that's very, very creative. Other people, used them to, support a local charity. Other people use whatever. But we just said, fine, we want to give them to we'd rather give them to our supporters than give them to an online fundraising fund.
Okay. Thanks.
Governor, yes. Can you elaborate? You said you didn't think there were 12 qualified candidates in your local.
Well, I think as one of the criteria for running for president ought to be some of your relevant experience. And if you haven't had an opportunity to work in an executive branch role, which is what the presidency is, so which that would include people being governor, or if you haven't worked in the private sector, I think those are the two basic questions. If the Iowa voters are smart, the New Hampshire voters are smart. They're like the two screening rounds for trying to select the next president. That's like the first two interview rounds you go through, and most of the time if you have a job description, we know that, then what's the desired experience? And the desired experience for most Americans is people that have proven that they can get things done in the executive branch, and also that they've got experience in the private sector. And in our case, having worked at a bunch of jobs where you took a shower at the end of the day instead of the beginning of the day, I think that a lot of Americans would be looking forward to having a president who understands what working Americans are actually going through, and what it takes to make payroll every 2 weeks, which I've been doing since I was 26 years old, and what it means to cut your own pay to make sure you got enough money to pay the people that are working for you. These are things that I think are prerequisites, and we're counting on the voters to be able to understand that.
Okay, thanks guys. Let's go.
That's how good Harlan is.
Yeah. A lot of families grew up here. So
Oh, you are close to us.
House of Us Motor Company. Yep. There used to be a House of Us drug on the zoo area too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad went to high school here, and well, maybe from here. Yes.
When we were just talking, you saw it on the stage, you were very frustrated. And what you just said to me before coming on is you think that, from your perspective, the voters lost tonight. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think if voters tune into a presidential debate, they want to find out contrast. They want to find out what different candidates represent. And when you're the candidate who has created more jobs than everybody else on stage, when I've made payroll since my 20s, mid-20s, I've been making payroll longer than everybody else combined on the stage. So I've got more business experience than everybody on the stage. And then I'm the only tech guy on the stage who understands software, and we're talking about TikTok, and I don't get a question. I don't get a question on the economy. And then we talk about energy, and North Dakota produces more energy than most OPEC nations, and we're a leader in innovation energy. And the Biden energy policies are completely raising the price for every American, no matter what your party affiliation. You're paying too much for your food, too much for your gas and energy, and you don't get a question on that. So, of course, if the frustration came across, which is, hey, maybe we should ask the person. And if you talk about the border, there's only one sitting governor up there that's actually got troops down there right now. It's not like, here's what I'm going to do when I'm president. Here's what we're doing right now. We've got North Dakota troops flying Lakota helicopters from San Diego to the Gulf Coast trying to stop transnational criminal organizations, and you don't get a question on the border. So, of course, a little frustrated because we came tonight to not watch a debate, but to participate in the debate and have Americans understand that there's a choice.
And you don't feel like you were a participant?
Well, I had to fight my way in. I mean, literally, I think I got like 1 or 2 questions in 2 hours.
Let me ask you about one of the things that you say that you're very good at, which is you are a governor, you are a chief executive, you've had to bring the legislature together. I mean, you obviously are in a very Republican state, but I'm thinking about what's going on in Washington right now. We're just days away from a government shutdown. If you were president and the situation was happening right now on Capitol Hill with House Republicans fighting amongst themselves, many of them, the hardliners, not wanting to support anything at all, how would you get them out of it?
Well, this dynamic exists in red states too, where you've got sort of two factions within the same party.
So how would you get them out of it?
It's the way we've done it in North Dakota. I mean, we came in and said, hey, we're going to pass the largest tax cut in the history of the state. We went in, we got that done. There was a number of other important initiatives. We said we're going to cut red tape. We passed 51 red tape reduction bills this year.
It's easy to cut. It's easy to pass tax cuts, or easier to pass tax cuts in a red state than in Washington.
You'd be surprised on how our party can disagree with each other, because there's just like in Washington, D.C. that McCarthy's dealing with, most red states have got 2 factions, so got a lot of experience in dealing with that. But what we really need is we have to have leadership that is solving the root problem. And the real problem, and the reason why people are saying, don't create a solution, because they're concerned about spending, and we should be concerned about spending. And in North Dakota, when I first became governor, we actually cut it, not slowed the growth. We cut it by 27% my first 4 months in office, and everything kept running on time, because if you're a business leader, you know how to take costs out of government and not reduce the cost of services.
We're here at the Reagan Library. As we listen to tonight, and as more importantly, we watch the way the Republican Party is on a national basis right now, it is not the party of Reagan anymore. Do you agree with that?
Well, it may not be, but when we take a look, when Reagan took over, we had high inflation. Jimmy Carter was talking about a malaise, and the country was in decline. We had super high interest rates, and we had a Western governor.
That's about the state of the country. I'm just talking about the state of your party.
Well, the state of the party was very divided between Goldwater and, Ford and Reagan. It wasn't a clear thing with him. I mean, Reagan didn't get the nomination in 76, but now here we are, where we've got, a Western governor. Ronald Reagan comes in. There was a Cold War with Russia, and he showed how to win that by getting the economy sprinting. And so I think it's time for another Western governor to step in right now, to ride in and say, look, we know how to win a Cold War with China. We know how to get this economy sprinting. We know how to solve the energy problems and take care of the environment. We can do that with innovation, not regulation.
This is a national debate, a national conversation. You were also telling me before we came on, maybe the obvious, but people should remember that this nomination is won state by state and contest by contest. How do you feel that this will or will not impact the voters on the ground for the caucuses in Iowa first, the primary voters in New Hampshire, South Carolina, etc.?
Well, I think those early state voters feel a great pride in the role that they play, and they show up and they come to events.
Are they going to show up for you?
Absolutely. When we're on the ground, we're getting great response. If they had us aligned by state polls versus national polls, we'd be closer to the center. So the voters that are actually voting would move us up 2 more places in that group. And we're just going to continue to reaching out with them because they're the ones that get to decide. Not national polls, not cable news networks, and not debates decide. It's the voters that decide who moves forward. And we know that we understand their concerns, which again, inflation, energy, national security on everybody's mind.
Governor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dana.
Appreciate it.
If you're the leader of the free world, and it's the day after 9/11, yeah, there was an intelligence failure. Is that the time to focus on fixing the intelligence failure and do a post-mortem when you haven't even had a chance to find out what people knew or didn't know? Pearl Harbor, we didn't see that coming. That was a big miss. And we can go back through history and say that. But right now, it's like we have to understand that there are people that don't value life, that are willing to do atrocities that are unthinkable. And that's what we need to focus on, is making them, Americans died, Americans have been kidnapped. As the leader, that's what the focus should be on.
Fantastic to be here. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. I want to just start out and say thank you to all of you. Thank you for investing your time. The Iowa caucuses and the Iowa caucus goers, what all of you do matters so much, because it's not pundits and it's not political insiders that pick presidents. It's Iowa caucus goers who invest time investing to learn and listen to candidates like you're doing tonight. You play an incredibly important role in this country. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. And I do want to say today was a beautiful, beautiful fall day, amazing fall day. It was for Catherine, right over here on the side, the beautiful First Lady from North Dakota, Catherine. It was the 3rd best day that Catherine and I have ever had in Iowa was today. Catherine's family, she's from North Dakota. Her family was in the John Deere business. I had a chance this afternoon to get away from campaigning for a little bit, got in a combine, was driving a combine down by Cogan. And I guess they said Coggin here for anybody that's from Coggin. But it was fantastic. And it was a PR for me, because I have never been in a John Deere combine where I've seen, in North Dakota, we're further north, the growing season shorter. I've never seen a number over 300 on the yield thing. And today, for a while, we were going through a low spot, 316. So that's a new PR for me. And it was on a big John Deere with all the latest auto steer. Catherine's, like I said, in the John Deere business. Her family was in that, so it was a happy moment. And then, of course, pulling the giant grain cart that we filled up after just one trip up and down the field, being pulled by a Case IH quad track 450, not the biggest ones, they're the 600s, but the 450 made in Fargo, North Dakota, and I've had a chance to drive the 600, the first one off the line at that plant, so that's one of the cool things about being governor in North Dakota that you guys didn't know about. Anyway, that was our day today. That was our 3rd best day ever. And then some people have said, well, how does it get any better than that? And I said, well, Catherine and I were both here, and the 1st and 2nd best days in our lives in Iowa was when North Dakota State beat the Hawkeyes and when North Dakota State beat the Cyclones. Those were the days one and... What, too soon? Come on, that was 2014 and 2016. Can't we live in the past once in a while? Okay. But that was fun. Just try not to think about us kicking that field goal with time expiring to win 23-21. Who would bring that up? Okay. I do want to say it's fabulous to be here, but this is really uncertain times. We've got uncertainty in the world, and we've got uncertainty at home. Inflation is the #1 thing that's choking every American family. It costs $700 more a month for every family to put food on the table and gas in the car than it did when Joe Biden took office just under 3 years ago. And it's reaching into every hardworking American savings, including, unfortunately, everybody in this room, like a thief in the night. Your bank account says that money is still there, but you've lost 30% of your purchasing power, along with every other American, in what's in your savings. And that is the #1 thing that is killing opportunity in our country. And then interest rates at a 23-year high closing in on 8%, putting the dream of home ownership out of reach for a whole generation of young people. And we know that home ownership is part of what drives our country forward. But that's self-inflicted, completely self-inflicted by the Biden policies of spending more than they have and out of control spending. And then number two, energy policy is also driving that inflation. When you try to kill the U.S. energy industry and then trade, OPEC, which we finally got free of, China is basically writing Joe Biden's energy policy, because if you're going to say we're going to get rid of liquid fuels, and in Iowa here with ethanol and biodiesel and what we do in places like North Dakota and Texas, liquid fuels is Team USA. If you're on EV, you're on Team China. Because Team China, they control 85% of the rare earth minerals, and any plan to have our entire fleet of transportation electrified right now depends on China. A country that's the world's largest polluter. They put more CO2 in the air than anybody in the world. They're opening a coal plant, one a week. They have 260 that are being permitted. So how in the world would you have an energy plan? If you cared about the environment, you'd want to have every ounce of energy and every electron produced in the United States of America. So wrong on economy and wrong on energy and wrong on national security, and they're all three tied together. I'm sure you've heard it from every speaker tonight, but we've got Joe Biden is funding Iran, which is then funding Hamas and funding Hezbollah. We're in a proxy war with Russia. We're in a proxy war with Iran. We're in a Cold War with China. That's all happening because of failed policies. We're generating conflict through weakness. We need peace through strength. And one thing that Ronald Reagan taught us is the way you win a Cold War is you get your economy really moving. In North Dakota, we've done everything we need to do. We've cut red tape, passed 51 more red tape reduction bills this year. We get up every day, and you know what we say? We say innovation, not regulation. That's what we do to drive our economy. That's how America has always won. And we also say on energy, it's pretty simple. On day one, we're going to sell energy to our friends and allies. Stop buying it from our enemies. That's the policy right now. And we can't have national security without food security, energy security, and border security. I've been down to the border more times than Joe Biden. We've had deployments down there continuously during my time as governor. And not just guarding the border, but flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast. North Dakota National Guard, Dakota helicopters, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations. The invasion into our country, 6.5 million people, that's the equivalent of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Joe Biden's home state of Delaware, and the state of Montana. That's how many asylum seekers have been let in from countries that are on the terrorist watch list. So our country is less safe, our country is less prosperous under Joe Biden. Who's going to fix that? It's not going to be somebody from Washington, D.C., it's going to have to be somebody from the outside. And guess what? It's going to take somebody who's got some common sense and small town values, who understands how to turn this country around, someone who's worked in the private sector. I've been making payroll since my mid-20s. I've created more jobs than everybody else on that debate stage combined. I'm just sorry. They've served our country in a great way, but we've got to, if someone's going to fix this economy, they have to have actually done the work. Every job I had growing up, working on the farm, the ranch, as a chimney sweep, paying my way through college, I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. I am out there for the American worker. I'm out there for the American farmer. I understand their pain. My dad died when I was a freshman in high school. My mom went back to work. She was making sure that we could pay the mortgage and save the farm. That's what we went through. We can do this. We can turn around the economy, turn around energy, make America more safe and more prosperous. Thank you. DougBurgum.com. We'll see you soon. Our eyes can't avoid the mounting problems facing us here at home. Our southern border is being invaded, a literal invasion, with illegal border crossings at record levels. Record levels just passed this September again. I've been down at the border more times than Joe Biden. That wasn't hard. And more than Harris also. But we've had North Dakota troops down there nearly continuously during my time in office. Brave young men and women in the North Dakota National Guard, not just standing sentry on the border, but also North Dakota troops providing leadership and pilots flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast in Lakota helicopters.
attempting to stop transnational criminal organizations that in many cases are better funded and better armed than our law enforcement, because Joe Biden is effectively defunding the Border Patrol law enforcement the way many have defunded the police in our cities, and we see what's happening in our cities. But border security is national security, and our national security is compromised every day that we do not have control of our own borders. The likelihood that Hamas agents have entered America has increased dramatically over the last 2.5 years. We throw out numbers that are hard to imagine. 6.5 million people that have entered our country since Joe Biden took office. But think about that. That's every man, woman, and child in the state of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, Joe Biden's home state of Delaware, and you have to throw in Montana as well. Every individual, that equals 6.5 million people. That's how many have entered. And when you're down at the Border Patrol getting a briefing as a governor, one of the things they show you is the other number on the list, and that's the known gotaways, where we've got cameras on the border but no Border Patrol because they're busy literally doing paperwork. They're overwhelmed by the volume of people they're processing in. The known gotaways is 1.5 million. But there's another number that none of you hear about, the unknown gotaways. This is a place where the bad guys have disabled the cameras and people just walk freely into our country. Is that 1 million, 2 million? We don't know. But we do know of the ones that we've caught that we got a record number that are on the terrorist watch list. I do know from my recent trip down there that these weren't all from Latin America. There was over 100 countries where people had come across and had been apprehended, including all the names of the countries we've mentioned so far in this list, and including Syria, Iran, North Korea. Policies that encourage open borders or overwhelm our defunded Border Patrol put the American people in danger. As your president, border security will be a top national security priority. I am prepared to surge troops to the southern border and employ whatever we need across diplomatic, informational, military, and economic responses. But the U.S. military, we can deploy them in responsible and effective ways to stop the flow of people and drugs into our country. We will reverse every one of Joe Biden's open border policies. We'll boost recruitment and retention efforts for our Border Patrol. We'll prioritize policy making on the advice of our Border Patrol professionals, not left-wing ideologues. And why do I say that? Because if you're down there meeting with multi-generation American law enforcement families that have worked in the Border Patrol, they will tell you, we've closed the border before, we can close it again, just give us the resources, the technology, and the leadership from the White House to close it, and we will close it. We'll also issue National Security Directive 1, ordering a maximum pressure campaign on the international cartels and their Chinese suppliers, directing every department and agency of the U.S. government to immediately bring forward every possible tool, law enforcement, executive action, financial sanctions, rewards for justice, special operations, covert actions, and more, to shut down the flow of fentanyl into the United States and make sure it's the narco-terrorists that are being threatened, not American families. We've lost the equivalent of 5 Vietnams worth of mass casualties of Americans dying of overdose deaths since Joe Biden took office. It's 300 a day. 300 Americans a day. These are sons and daughters, their nieces and nephews, their moms and dads, trapped in the disease of addiction. Joe Biden, under Joe, we are losing economic and military superiority, and that will produce unacceptable and far-reaching consequences for future generations of Americans. First and foremost, we need to get our fiscal house in order to unleash the unmatchable engine of American economy. And there's a simple way to do this. The Biden administration thinks they can create a regulation to solve every problem, and instead they create problems. I know from 3 decades in an industry where we were creating jobs, increasing competitiveness, improving productivity for nearly every company in America, we move our economy forward by focusing on innovation, not regulation. An economy that's growing not only delivers prosperity to the American people,
but it allows our allies to be more safe and prosperous because we can increase what we spend on military spending. We have to expand our economy and wipe out inflation. Every American family is being crushed right now. The average family is spending over $700 more a month than they were when Joe Biden was elected just to put food on the table and gas in their car. We need to unleash the power and potential of American-made energy, making America the energy superpower of the world. With innovation, America can be the arsenal of energy for the free world. We're socialist and communist countries, and you understand how that can destroy people's lives and families and their futures. And so, I mean, the experience that we have, that should be the criteria. And then, and you could throw in a few other ones as well, because technology is changing every job, every company, and every industry. And it needs to change government, and part of how we've been able to cut costs and state government in North Dakota is we brought North Dakota from the 1980s, forward. I mean, when I got in there, I was shocked to find out. Someone told me that they had an issue because they had faxed something to the state of North Dakota, and there's some issue. And I said, "We have fax machines?" This is in 2017. I said, what are we doing? And then I went to the IT guy that I just had hired. I said, can you figure out how many fax lines are coming to the state? There was 157 fax lines. And I bet you if I went to the other 49 states, they would still have fax machines. And if you got a fax machine, then you're paying a state employee to take a fax off the machine. You're paying them a pension. You're paying for their space. You're paying for their desk. You're paying for their computer. And then they do the data entry for the citizen. Okay? And, I went to our farmer legislators that had been underfunding IT for decades, and I said, you guys all say you need to shop local. Yep. How many of you have an Amazon Prime account that live 90 miles away from town and have UPS bring everything to your farmyard? All of them. Everybody ships, stuff. Why? In places like Iowa and North Dakota, when you got long distance, of course you're going to order online and have it come to you. I said, have you ever faxed anything to Amazon? No. Have you ever called them and talked to their call desk and let them do the order? No. You're doing the data entry for Amazon. Why are we doing the data entry? The people in North Dakota know how to do data entry. Anyway, so we've eliminated so much stuff in our state. We said the customers, the taxpayers are the customers. We're going to treat them like the customers they are. We're going to give them the service instead of saying, oh, we need a bigger room at DMV. And we need to hire more people behind the tellers so they don't have the wait lines. I'm going to add this thing where you take a number so people get served in order. I'm like, why do we have a waiting room? Why do we have people driving here? Why do we have people why are we only open during the hours when they're working and they've got to take time off to come here to do a renewal or something? Why aren't we doing all that online? Let them do it in the evening or the weekend. We should be working when they're not, as opposed to us working less hours than they are. So, we've been able to take all this cost out a variety of different ways, and part of it's just making sure that we focus on innovation, not regulation. That's what we do in North Dakota. So anyway, I wanted to say, when we announced on June 7th, the other reason people said, oh, you're not going to have anything to offer to this campaign and this whole thing because this whole election in 2024 is going to be decided around issues around woke. And I said, woke is what we did in Arthur to start the day. That's when we got up and go to work. That wasn't like the thing. It's going to be economy, energy, and national security. And what are we talking about right now? Those three things, because that's what's driving this world forward. That's what we need to talk about. That's what the actual job of the president is. Some of these other issues are very important cultural issues. They got to be handled at the school board level or at the home with the parents, not the president of the United States' job. To weigh in on who's at a pregame show for an LA Dodgers event. No, it's like not when we've got an open border, not when we've got all the problems we have. So I understand as a CEO, and be clear right away, I'm not a politician. I was not even that interested in politics. I'm interested in running stuff and solving problems, and that's all I've ever done. Attract the team, attract the resources you need, go solve the problem. In North Dakota, when we jumped in, I went to Catherine and I said, hey, I'm thinking about running for governor. And she's like, what? Why would you do that? And I'm like, well, hey, for the same reason, competition is good. We jumped into a race in January. The primary was in June. We were down 59 points in the poll against someone who had 100% name recognition, was a sitting attorney general for 15 years, and had been in the legislature for 24 years before that. People said, don't run, you can't win. I mean, all the things they say to me now, all the things they said when they said you can't build a global software company in North Dakota, you'll never be able to do it. I mean, I heard it over and over and over. Now we're hearing it now. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. It's like, all of you that are from the Midwest, you know what small town work ethic is about. You know what common sense is all about. You know how working, helping your neighbors instead of fighting your neighbors. You know what that's all about. And that's what it takes to get our country going. So we jumped in the thing. We won that primary by 20. We won the general election in fall of 16 by 40 points. Okay, and then that was a good year for outsiders. 2020, some of the people that ran as outsiders didn't make it back in 2020. We ran as an outsider in 2020 again, and we won by 40 points again, because when there's a blizzard in North Dakota, guess what? We plow the roads for the Republicans, the Independents, and the Democrats. We plow them for everybody. It's not like, oh, we're just throwing bombs at each other. The executive branch has to work for every citizen. We got to make it work. So anyway, I'm going to stop there, but I just would say again, grateful to have all of you be here today, and would love to take your questions on any of the topics that you have, particularly around economy, energy, and national security. We'd love to talk about that. But first of all, I want to say give yourselves a hand, because you're here engaging in a super important process to help guide our country forward. This right here in this room right now, you can make a difference in terms of who's going forward. So you're making a difference. Give yourselves a round of applause. Sure, I think you had your hand up first, and if you can just shout out your first name and where you're from, and that'll be
My name is John, and I'm from Norwalk. And just wanted to say congratulations to you as a member from the line of the Burgums. I'm very proud of what you've done. But my question is, what was...
Look, I've got my nephew here, and it's his first day on the camp train, and he's not a plant. Okay, so everybody say hi to James Burgum over here. But thank you. You made my day right there.
Yeah. My question is, with seeing what D.C. and the media has done to Republicans over the last 8, 10, and even further back than that, what was the one thing that really pushed you over the line and said, I want to be, or I need to be president?
Well, it's a combination of the things that I said earlier, but it has to do with an understanding of what the executive role is, of actually what the job of president is. I think that somehow the media has gotten this idea, and maybe it started back with Obama, that the president is a celebrity. And if you're not a celebrity, and if you're not like center of your own reality TV show, 7 by 24, then you're not qualified to be president. When there's actual real work that you have to do, the president has to appoint 4,000 people, and you've got to be ready to do that on day one. And I voted for President Trump twice, 16 and 20, and I was excited in 16 to get elected at the same time. And then I got a front row seat of what I saw happen, which is when we didn't appoint those 4,000 people. Now we're dealing with it in this right now. We've got people that got appointed by Obama. Obama fired those 4,000 people that were part of the George W. Bush administration and replaced them. And they were there for 2 terms. They dug in. They waited for the transition to come. A lot of them never got transitioned out. Now they're in their 4th term as an unelected bureaucrat. And we have 28 rulemaking efforts coming at us in the state of North Dakota right now. 6 in U.S. Fish and Wildlife, a bunch in Bureau of Land Management, EPA is like a long list. I mean, all of these things that are happening, and this is happening because we did not execute and actually lead and run the executive branch when we had a shot at doing it. And we've got to come in now and clean house, but also be ready to go with the appointments to fill those spots, so we can start reversing all of this, most of the stuff that's creating the inflation, and it's empowering foreign dictators, destabilizing the world around economy and energy policies. It's not stuff that Congress has passed. It's all stuff that's come out of executive orders and the 3-digit agencies that are overreaching on everything they're doing. So it is, and I see that right now. So I got into this as a heart of service to make a difference for my own state, and now I see, like, wow, I've had a chance to meet all these people, and it's not like, oh, to be president you have to be this or that. No, it's like a kid from the Midwest can actually do this job and do it better, okay, because the experience and understanding we have to do that, and people have to start with that belief. I'm so tired of the national media thinking that the Midwest is the punchline, right? I mean, take a look at all these other candidates, the finalists, are all from the coast. I mean, if you're not from a major media market, where are you going on this thing? So, but Iowa maybe should just stand up and go, no, we actually think that there ought to be in the finals of this contest, there ought to be somebody that actually knows and understands how this country works. So it's still out of a heart of service, but we have an opportunity to have an American century in front of us that is unbelievable, but we also have a chance to be in World War III in another year or two. I mean, there's an inflection point right here, and we're cascading 180 degrees in the wrong direction across economy, energy, and national security under the current administration. So that's the other reason they're running this, because I'm actually afraid of what will become if we don't turn the ship around and go a different direction. And I'm not a grievance candidate. I'm not a victim candidate. I'm not going to tell you about this, that, and all these other things. I'm just going to say when we get in there, we will absolutely get the job done because we know how to get it done. Sir?
Two things you've said that really piqued my interest.
And remind us all your name and your...
I'm Gary Leffler from West Des Moines, Iowa. I'm a tractor guy, that's what everybody knows.
But Gary, thanks for being here.
Thank you. My uncle was a two-star general, and he said, I asked him one time what was his recipe for success, and he says, whenever I got to command, I said, who are the farm boys? And I put those guys in charge. The second thing, in the first debate, you said this: we need to bring small-town values back to Washington, D.C., and I couldn't agree with you more on that. So how do we accomplish those two things?
Well, let me start with the small-town values, because, I mean, anybody... And how many people here grew up in what they consider a small town? Sort of everybody. I mean, you get what we're talking about. And I got nothing against large communities. But if you want to fix our major cities, you got to do it one neighborhood at a time. You're not coming in with federal bailout money, to some city that's completely corrupt and upside down and union driven and economic sound. It's got to be done neighbor to neighbor. But in a small town, I mean, when a farmer in my hometown got sick, and I get emotional because I think of specific guys that were dads and friends of mine, get cancer. You don't need a federal program, a state program. Everybody else, all the neighbors come to say, we're going to take the crop off. While he's getting treated. We're going to do that. This is neighbors helping neighbors. That's part of what made America great. And when Catherine and I travel around the country, and we see it, there is that still happening everywhere. In the best of America, there's examples of small local nonprofits having a huge impact. And I go, are you getting any state dollars? No. You getting federal dollars? No. Yeah, but we did this, we saved these lives, we fed, we did all. It's amazing. You never hear about it. You never hear about the good stuff, particularly now, because guess what? On social media, you know what gets people to click? Two things: fear and anger. Human emotion. The people that are building these social media models know that a human is more likely to respond if they're afraid of something or mad at something than if they feel good about something. So guess what? Weaponize every issue. Drive everybody to the edge, put on your shirt and start throwing bombs at each other. And what's left in the middle? The exhausted majority, the 70% of Americans that are ready to check out because the people that aren't here at this luncheon, because they've hey, I've given up on this thing. I've turned off the TV. I've just got my head down and trying to survive. And then they won't know what happened when this country drives off the cliff. You're here and you're engaged, but part of it is not every problem is a bipartisan issue. I mean, take the 300 deaths a day from overdose deaths in our country. We had this plan for weeks and weeks, but then yesterday when they were doing the FCF football playoffs, and they, based on who won and lost on Saturday, and then they had a drawing and a thing, and they do the whole thing anyway. So Drake is playing North Dakota State on Saturday, but up at the Fargo Dome. So it'll be 72 degrees at game time inside the dome. No wind, 72 degrees is perfect conditions for playing football.
That's funny. All right.
Go ahead.
Am I kicking us off? Okay. Governor, I wanted to ask, so I don't know how well you know Governor Reynolds through the RGA, but I wanted to get your thoughts about her putting her thumb on the scale and endorsing when Iowa governors have typically stayed out of the caucuses and kept neutral?
Well, I know Kim well. I know her through Republican governors, and also know her because we're not next door neighbors, but we're neighbors here in the Midwest and share a lot of common policy themes around energy and agriculture. So I have great respect for Governor Reynolds, big fan of hers, and I think that governors in their own state get to make their own choices about how they want to endorse or not endorse, and I respect all the other Republican governors and how they go about doing their business. So this is a choice that she made, and I'll leave it to you, you guys can ask her questions about why or when or the timing of all that stuff. But I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of Kim's.
And Governor, what's your reaction to the $100 million security assistance package for Ukraine that the Department of State announced today?
Well, you said $100 million?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to speak to your audience, but speak to all of you. You've all been so kind to come to all these events, but I think you know my views on this thing, which is we keep getting asked about the size of the dollars, for Ukraine, and it's not really about the dollars, whether it's 100 million or billions, whatever the number is. It's about what are we doing to help them win, as opposed to are we just prolonging a stalemate. And I think that we need to have an opinion about why we're there. And generally, if we're going to be in something and we're supporting an ally that's a natural ally of ours and someone who, again, as I've said here, we should just be saying thank you to Ukraine for them sacrificing their time, their treasures, their cities. I mean, entire cities have been virtually destroyed in that country. The citizen death toll, climbing and climbing. And we haven't had to send a soldier, and they've taken out half of Russia's military capability. So I absolutely think we should continue to support Ukraine in this battle. But the dollar amount, I think there's things that we could be doing that would cost less and be more effective. I mean, the oil sanctions have failed. The economic sanctions I don't think have been fully explored. And all of the weakness that we've shown and all the appeasement leading up to this thing has just turned Russia into China's discount gas station at a time when China is winning. China, the world's largest importer of oil and gas, is winning this battle because somehow they've got the Biden administration to release the sanctions on Iran, release the sanctions on Venezuela, and then put weak sanctions on Russia. And so that China is winning a global energy war right now, and that war is as important as the actual battle that's going on the ground in Ukraine.
And just to clarify, it's $100 million worth of weapons and equipment.
Well, weapons and equipment is what we should be sending. I mean, we've been sending them a lot of our old stuff as opposed to sending them the stuff that they need to win. We would never fight a war with Russia without air cover. We would not let it turn into a deadly World War I trench warfare kind of effort. We would actually do what it takes to win, and yet we're expecting this country to somehow go fight the Russians and the mighty Russian army without giving them, at any point along the way what they actually needed to be able to win. So it's great that we're focusing on munitions, but we've also got an issue at home because 15% of the defense budget is only 15%. 85% goes to things other than ammunition and equipment to fight wars. And so we've got a structural issue, not just with the size of our defense budget, but what we spend it on. And we've got to build up our military capability and our military industrial base, whether it's ships, whether it's submarines. A third of our submarines are in dry dock right now. And so if we're going to be entering into these global conflicts, the proxy war with Russia, the proxy war with Iran, and a Cold War with China, we've got to step it up here. When Reagan won the Cold War against Russia back in the 1980s, we were spending 6.5% of GDP on related to military, and we're not even spending half of that right now. So we've got to figure out a way to do that. And the way we have to do that is we have to get our economy going. The way we get our economy going is you stop the crazy spending, you cut the red tape, and you get American energy going back here. All of those things would actually juice our economy, and that's part of how we can pay for having a strong military to be able to prevail in these Cold Wars and not have this turn into World War III.
Sorry.
I was going to follow up on that. Go ahead.
You can follow.
Just quickly, you're just saying specifics, so you would approve right now 300 kilometer range TACMs, increasing the production of domestic artillery, like 155 millimeter rounds. That's something that you would be willing to do as president right now? That's been the hesitancy for the Biden administration.
Yeah, yes and yes. I mean, the ATACMS is something that we should have already sent, and we might be in a different position relative to the stalemate we're in if we'd actually given them that kind of equipment and capability when they needed it.
Can I ask about the RNC? You mentioned at this event and the last event that they've been doing what they haven't done before, which is winnowing the field. And if you continue to be shut out of this process, would you ever consider being a third-party candidate, running as an independent?
I'm running for the Republican nomination, and I think that the third-party efforts right now are going to could aid a re-election for Joe Biden. So I'm not a supporter of those at this moment.
And do you think it's necessary to consolidate the field of Republican candidates to stop Trump from running away with this nomination?
I think that your question is framed around a theory which I don't believe in, because I believe that narrowing the field is the responsibility of the voters. So if people want to narrow the field, that's what the voters get to do, and they get to do it. The caucus goers in Iowa and the early states like New Hampshire, they're the ones that get to do that. And we should not try to take that power away from the voters, because when political insiders and cable networks are the ones that are trying to narrow the field, guess what? They're not the voters. And when they've tried to do this in the past, the pundits and the people say, oh, we know who's going to win, they're not very good at it. The track record is not good. The voters have the track record. The voters are the ones that lift people up and move people forward. And we just got to make sure in a democracy that's where it needs to stay.
One last question for me. You talked about this morning going to university, the importance of bringing out the young vote, getting through there. What about similarly, do you feel confident, what's the Burgum strategy for maybe bringing also African-American voters and bringing those into the Republican Party? Do you feel confident that you're able to bring in, gain a significant amount of support in the black community?
Well, I believe regardless of race, creed, or color, there are common things that unite us all, and that's in terms of whether it's feeling safe in your home, safe in your community, having good schools, having economic opportunity to proceed. And the Republican Party has to move beyond identity politics. We've got to have something that unites everybody together in terms of these common themes, and have someone who's had people working for me in over 120 countries around the world. I understand what different race, different creed, different colors, different religions, different cultural backgrounds mean. But when you meet people from all over the world, there's a commonality that everybody has in terms of what they want. They want to have better opportunities for their children than they had for themselves. They want to have access to education and health care. They want to live in a place where they're not afraid of either their neighbors or what's going on. And so we need to drive forward as a party with solutions on how to deliver that, and then as opposed to divide people around the identity politics, which is a specialty of the Democrat Party, is to try to pick different voter groups by certain identity and then say, hey, we're for them, we're for them. No, there's common things that we're all for, and we've seen that in North Dakota. I mean, the reason why we're winning 70-40 in North Dakota is because we've got people who are voting for us because they know that we care deeply about all people, and they know that we're working on solutions for all people.
How's your recovery coming along?
Well, thank you. Very kind of you to ask. It's coming along really, really well, and I did have an opportunity to shake hands with Aaron Rodgers before the Jets-Eagles games a few weeks ago, and people noticed that Aaron was not wearing a cast, and I was still, and we got injured about the same time. And he was throwing a football, and I wasn't, on the sidelines warming up. But then somebody said, wow, Aaron's like ahead of you. And I said, well, Aaron's not running a state, and he's not running for president. He's probably got 12 or 14 hours a day for PT, but he is an inspiration right now, because he's talking about trying to come back in mid-December. That would be 3.5 months for him, and that would be unheard of. I mean, any orthopedic surgeon you talk to in this country, they'll tell you that's amazing. I mean, remember Kevin Durant, one of the great basketball players of all time, he was out for 12 months from when he blew his Achilles to when he was back on the court. And for professional athletes, that's kind of the time frame. But if Aaron can get this done in 3.5 months, months and make it work, it's going to change everybody's thoughts about Achilles' recovery. And like I said, it'd be inspiring to find out what his secrets are when he gets done. But meanwhile, you know, I got the cast off at night. We're doing some walking, and it feels pretty good. I don't think I'm going to be back quite ready for skiing this winter, but I'd like to be. But we'll see how that goes. Maybe by March I can be on the slopes.
But you'll be, you know, fully cutting on the court and everything like that, bringing it through.
Well, I think that's I'm gonna hold off on maybe on return to the basketball court for a while on that. I want to make sure I win the election first. I'll do that.
Governor, if you were president right now, what would your Thanksgiving Day message to the American people be, and how are you celebrating?
Well, as if I were president, and same as I'm governor right now, my message is always gratitude. I mean, this is my favorite holiday. Thanksgiving has always been my favorite holiday because this is a holiday that, again, unites us all together, unites us in gratitude around the blessings that we have as a country. And what we have here, I mean, and our country doesn't have to be perfect to be exceptional, and we should be so grateful for even the basic rights that we have. I mean, what's going on right here, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, you know, voters that get to decide and vote to elect their leaders as opposed to having, you know, authoritarian dictatorships. You know, that many people in the world get up and that's their life experience that they're experiencing. And so when I think about who our global competitors are, and I think about, you know, someone who had people working for me in all these countries that didn't have the freedoms we have. There's just so much. If you're an American, I mean, gratitude has to start with our country and the opportunities we have, and so that's where it'll be. And then, you know, celebrating as always is going to be, it's going to be small and quiet and with family, and we'll be, you know, celebrating the blessings that we have, and certainly as governor of North Dakota, you know, sharing that with the rest of the state, because we're blessed as a state in terms of the riches that we have, both in the people and the soil and the minerals that we have that helps feed and fuel the world. I mean, grateful that we have an opportunity to be such a positive force for the country and the world in what we do.
Favorite Thanksgiving side?
Well, there's a couple of things here, but my mother had this amazing mustard sauce that goes incredibly good with ham, and we were, you know, people would say, "Oh, is it turkey or ham?" We were like a both thing because we'd have a little bit of ham and a little bit of turkey. But there was like a raisin sauce that my grandmother's recipe on a raisin sauce that goes really good on the turkey, and then there's this mustard sauce. So I guess I'm more about the sauces as the side and that, but nothing like a great sweet potato though. Also, I mean, with a lot of butter. I'm kind of a big butter guy. I think the sweet potato is kind of a vehicle for the butter.
North Dakota, right?
What's that?
A local North Dakota one, right?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Of course, right.
Thanks, Governor.
Okay, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here this week.
Still get a picture?
You guys are very patient. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, no, that was interesting. I enjoyed it. Although I'm afraid that the media's message is going to be the governor's now on the sauce.
Thanks for the headline. I appreciate it.